Okay, so we got this side set up now. Again, put grease up inside the housing here, a little grease on the outside of this. Basically, this ridge right here that you can just see, there's 3 dimples stamped into this housing, and those are made to grab that groove as it goes up. So got the jack moved over to this side, and now what we're going to do is just slowly raise it up. And you can see it pushing in. It doesn't really quite pop, but it. Let's see, so that's basically about thumbs width. So it's still working on this side. It's not quite there yet. Let's go. Be careful because I'm starting to lift the Jeep up off the hoist there. Don't want that. Yeah, this side did not pop. So just gonna reposition a little bit. And we'll jack back up and see if it goes this time a little bit straighter. If not, we'll put a little more grease on this side. The other side I could see it moving the whole time, so this side keeps stopping. Not liking it as much on this side, so we'll go. If it won't go, I will probably end up taking just me cleaning off the edge of this here a little bit. Feels like the little stamp bumps are a little bit sharper, like they stick out a little bit further on this side, which is probably what's making it more difficult for this to get past it. It's got grease all over it. Let's get a little more grease on that one. Okay. Okay, let's get us another shot here. You can see it's going in. Lift. It's moving. It's moving. It's still not doing it. It's still letting me lift the Jeep off the lift. So definitely feeling like these stampings on this side. The other ones just felt like a bump. This actually you can feel like a sharp edge. Like it actually, when they stamped that, they popped it loose. So I'm going to go ahead and Get that good. I'm going to go over to the sander here and take off. Probably just going to take off a little bit of that lip so that it has a little bit better time sliding past it. Okay, see what I did is I just got on my belt sander. I just smoothed that edge out a little bit. I just took off just enough where I'm hoping they'll be, I probably didn't even take a 16th, probably like a 32nd of an inch. And hopefully that's enough to allow that to slip on there. So we'll put some more grease on it and we'll give it another try. This goes to show, I mean, no matter how good these kits are, there's always something you got to improvise or whatever when you're doing these kinds of projects. That's what hot rod's about, so figuring out how to get it done. Okay. Now we're going to give this a shot again. So hopefully that was enough for it to go in there. Other side took half a minute to do. This side will probably going on 15 minutes trying to. Up off the hoist. Still not going in. Looks like it's a little bit better. But we'll see if it comes back up when they lower it down because I'm not convinced that we're there yet. The other side, when it slipped into place, you could see the motion as it slipped into place. This one I see it's coming back out as I lower it down. So it's partway in there. So if I put my thumb right there on that one, let's try to get a measure of if two sides are similar or not. Yeah, it's still not in as far as this side. So what we'll do, what I try and do is kind of relocate this block and maybe push it from the side. Now it seems like it's kind of gone in a bit more on this side. Let's see as we lower it down. Maybe not. We'll get a little more on that inside edge. Okay, now it's looking like it's pretty even with this side. Using the ever accurate thumb measurement, it looks pretty good. So maybe we'll do one more, just going straight up with it, just to see if it'll see any better. But it seems like it's pretty good now. Okay. It's good for that step. Okay, so there's the old front spring on the left compared to the new front spring on the right. So between that height and that height is about 1.25 inches. So this is a 2.5 inch left, but this spring's much heavier and it's about 3/10 of an inch thicker. The coil material is 3/hundredths of an inch thicker. And so my guess is it will compress less than what the factory ones do. So it will be that's why it'll sit higher because it's really again you're only getting about 1.5 inches out of the actual height of the spring, but I think just because of the stiffness of it's going to be that make up the difference. Okay, so we got the passenger side spring in. You can see it's still sitting way below where it's supposed to seat at the top because we got to jack this all back up. Got it seated right here where it's supposed to with the end of the spring right in that little cup right there. And Had to kind of pull down the sway bar a little bit to get it out of the way so you get the spring in here, and it's pretty tight fit over the bump stop. So once I'll go over and do the other side and kind of show you how that happens, and then we'll go from there. This side is sitting up a little bit higher, so maybe a little more challenging on this side. It's definitely way less room on this side because, again, the axle's up on this side right now. I may need to move that jack over and jack the other side up while so we get this in place. I need to kind of swing it in pretty straight in order to clear that. So I can come in. Nope, I can't because didn't have this mount was not there on the other side, so this makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'll pause for a second on recording while I move that jack over. Okay, so we're gonna try this. It's a little tight on the sway bar. I'm gonna have to try to hold the suspension, kind of pull it down as I try and get the spring up there. Kind of hitting on the sway bar here. I've pulled it down as far as I go. I may have to end up disconnecting the sway bar at the frame, but hopefully not. Hopefully we can kind of, by pulling this down, we can, there we go, maybe, kind of. There it goes. So now we're gonna have to get about 2 inches we got to pull down on this to get this spring to get over the bottom mount. There we go. Pull that shock out of the way and the brake line. Rotate that till it falls in where it's supposed to. Right there. Okay, so we got new springs in. A couple scratches, not too bad. So we got the bump stop in, springs are in place. I'm gonna go and probably lower it down and finish taking my shocks off. And then we can start putting it back together. This kit came with new shocks. If you got the kit without the shocks, they give you extenders, I think, that go on both the top and possibly on the bottom. That, or maybe this one for sure had something that goes on the top. I don't know if it had something for the bottom or not. Maybe the backs have a bottom bracket, but anyways, they give you extenders for your stock shocks if that's where you're going to run. In this case, we've got the correct ones here, new shocks, and once we get that new shocks up sitting there, then we can start kind of bolting this back together. Okay, so we got the broken bolt off. This is the just a support bracket that's part of the brake line and ABS lines that sits right in this part of the bump stop and spring mount, and it snapped off right here. So I took a couple drill bits, drilled it out, and retapped it. It's a 6mm one pitch bolt. So we got that. Got it picked up a new bolt at the hardware store, and should be ready to go for that. And now we're going to go ahead and I think I'm going to kind of get things kind of put back together. And then I'm going to, so I can raise the axle back up, kind of put the shock bolts in temporarily. And what I want to do is get everything back up. I have the Jeep up high enough right now that I can't really reach those top shock bolts. So I guess I can go get something to stand on, but I'm just going to drop the whole thing down 6 inches and then better go ahead and replace the shocks in the front That's what I call the steering stabilizer. And then should be good to go. I think I'm going to keep all the end links and stuff. This thing doesn't have that many miles on it. I guess when I take it to the alignment shop, if they tell me I need to replace stuff, then I'll bring it back and do that. But for now, I may change my mind before I'm done here too. But at least get the new parts I've got installed, and then I guess I can think about whether I want to add those. That's a pretty quick job to get that stuff off and replaced if I need to. Okay, so I've got the shock bolts loosely in place. Got my new bolt here holding that in bracket in. Did this on both sides. Got the bolt in for the sway bar. Only thing I'm running into is that's what you call that thing, locator link for the axle, I guess. It runs between the frame and the axle, keep it centered. Is not coming back into place. No, I think part of it's because with the lift, it's going to be slightly off, and I have to investigate some more. This kit doesn't come with I think with a 2-inch lift you can get away with it. When you get bigger than that, I think you end up getting an adjustable one of these guys that allows you to move keep the axle centered better. But anyways, so right now I'm just off a little bit. So what I need to do, I'm going to take the pressure off and see if it kind of centers itself, and I'll jack it back up and then try and get it. You can see it's just the edge of it there. So we got to get it over about probably a good inch before we can get a bolt through there, and then we'll go from there. So that's kind of be the next step. I'm just going to let this jack down. Now I got all the nuts and bolts in place, or at least sitting there, so the axle won't drop. As I tried jacking up further, and it just started to lift the Jeep off of the hoist, so that wasn't going to work. So now I got that off. I'm going to put the phone down for a second. I'm going to see if I can jostle that thing. It's not holding me up anymore, but didn't really move it anywhere closer. So what I may need to do, and I should have watched some videos before I did this project, but I didn't. We might have to actually use like a tie down ratchet strap and kind of pull the axle over a little bit to get it back so where the link will line up. And then I may look at whether I should just replace that link or not. Again, it's all pretty easy to do on this thing. So unfortunately, this, for being a Michigan vehicle, it's 10-year-old Michigan vehicle. It's 11-year-old Michigan vehicle, I guess now. It's coming apart pretty easy, but it's got low miles and didn't get to see a lot of winter driving, I don't think, because it's fairly, Jeep's pretty rust free, except for I found one little spot as I was working on it this time. Found one little spot in the body right here. There's some bubbles, which I had not seen before. So we'll have to get that taken care of before it gets any worse. Okay, so you can see what we did. Let's see, get a good angle here. Is connected the ratchet. I'll show you on the other side. Wrap the ratchet strap around here. You can see it's hooked in right there, wrapped around a couple times. And what we've done now is accomplished is pulling the axle over so that center link, I'm probably calling that the wrong name, drag link, whatever it's called, is now centered. And then I've got the other end of the tie strap hooked up right here in the top of the mount. So didn't take too much, a couple tugs and it moved over to where we need it. So now we can get that bolt in, and then we'll be able to drop this down a little bit so I can get to those top shock bolts and do the shocks and the stabilizer. And then we should be in pretty good shape on the front. Just have to torque everything back down and should be good to go. Okay, so this is just putting this bolt in here. It's got kind of a, I can't remember what they called it exactly, but it's got kind of a unique, it's basically made so that it catches on something that allows it to hold it, because you really can't get a wrench back there super easily. There's that. And then we'll bring this around. So that's in. We'll come back and torque everything with the torque specs. Just remember, because I don't know if I showed or not, all of the control arm bolts were loosened up, both at the axle and at the chassis. So those will need to be torqued once the Jeep is staying back on the ground, or at least with weight on the wheels. Go ahead and get this tie strap out of here. This has got quite a bit of tension on it, so both sides. It's made it worse. Okay, got some slack out of it there now. Set off. This side might be a little trickier because it's pulled tighter than anything. There we go. So we kind of got mocked back together here. Now we're going to take a break and see what the next steps in the instructions are here. Okay, so we're going to try and take the upper shock mount off. I couldn't get it as low as I would have liked. With the I'm still got to get my jack under the axle. So it's like a 3/4 or a 19 millimeter upper shock bolts. Okay, so I'll shut the camera off. You guys get the gist of this. Is just going to take time. Just burn up film here. Okay, so we just about have it. The other side's gonna be a little tougher because the battery box is like right above the shock tower. So actually, instructions say you need to break some of the plastic. It's got kind of like a, say, a honeycomb, but kind of a pattern built into the mold, or and so we're gonna have to actually remove. I'm blocking the camera. Well, it just makes it really tight on the other side to get your hand up on those top shock bolts. Okay, so get this one off. We'll not be using that. So I already had taken these bolts off the shocks on the bottom. Go ahead and take those back off. These bottom ones will get reused. The shock just drops out. It's still got the washer at the top holding it on. Take that out of there. So there's our old parts right there. That was the bolt that was up there. Let's feel like they still have some life in them. Obviously, I'm not sure how many miles they had on the previous owner installed those Ranchos. Here's our new shock from Teraflex. Go ahead and pop this retainer on this. So the joys of finding a brand new shock, trying to get it up in there. But basically, it comes with the mounting hardware for the top. That goes on there. We've never done shocks before. A lot of times on the front, you'll have something like this at the top. Some on the possibly on the rear too. Once you put it up through the metal bracket in the top of the Jeep there, then this one goes on top, and then your nut goes on. So, and then the bottom on this side is just a single bolt through that hole there. downside to this one, there's no nut to hold this on the bottom. So when you go to remove it, when these go to be removed, it's gonna be a little bit more of a challenge, unfortunately. See, this Rancho had a nut built into this, which allowed you to hold that shaft from moving. That's welded to this upper shaft of the shock. So I'll give Rancho a little bit credit. That's a better design, but the reality is I'll probably never take these off as long as I own this vehicle. Unless we decide we need a bigger lift kit on it, you know, never know. So you got the shock up into place. Just need to get a something to lift up on a little bit wide. These gas shocks are pressurized, so they kind of fight you a little bit as you're trying to put them in. These nuts will get tied down to 56 foot-pounds, I believe. We'll double check that. Here's